Welcome everyone to another episode of Maybe Next Year. Another off season full of intrigue and suspense is upon us. It is, in fact, the time whence we shine, my friends. My name is Frank,
I'm Scott.
I'm Paul.
and this is our Super
I'm
Bowl,
Scott.
aka you. We heard you. Oh, did you say it twice, or did you just I just get a repeat off of you?
No, I said it twice. I didn't know if I came through the first time.
Oh, you came through. You're good.
Yeah,
Off
that's a
to,
good
off to
sign.
a flying
Otherwise,
start this new year.
right. Otherwise, we have to be like Scott. Everything you say has to be a palindrome, so that when it echoes, we get your exact meaning. So good luck with that. Thankfully, that's not the case.
Well, I'm glad to see that, yeah, we've picked up right where we've left off with this podcast. And, we're now 0 for 100. No, we're about like 3 for 106 on clean intros to this podcast. It's happened. It's kind of the Gordie Howe hat trick. Every once in a while, you might see it. No, the Bills season is over. And it ended in fabulous fashion, to be honest. I mean, if you were rooting for the football team to do well, it was a good day on Sunday, and we were, because we went in. The three of us put together some coin and traveled to our local inn and watched the football game, and we were happy to take in a 42-17 drubbing of the Miami Dolphins. Now that did cost them about 4 or 5 spots in draft position, but when you're just going to screw it up, who really cares? The story of the day was a Dolphins team that I would say looked like it quit, certainly in the second half. And the other half of the story was the Josh Allen show for the second time against the Dolphins. This time, 17 of 26 for 224 yards, 3 touchdowns passing and an interception, and then another 95 yards on the ground with 2 more touchdowns, accounting for 5 of the Bills' 6 scores in the game. They missed a field goal. Was the only, I don't want to say the only bad offensive thing, but the only opportunity they had to score that they didn't, I don't think. So a great game, an even better game to watch. There was a fight, there was scoring, there was intrigue.
Cheers. Got a little dusty at the end there.
Oh yeah, I didn't even bring up the reason we'll all remember this game. Of course, Kyle Williams' last game, and he got treated like a forward on senior day. Getting pulled out after a timeout in pretty great fashion. Let's talk about that in a minute, but let me get Paul watched most of the game because he got there to the bar first. So Paul's going to go first with his thoughts on this game in particular, and then, pardon my yawn, let's keep it short on the game so that we can reflect on the season and the bigger picture a bit more.
Right, and that's my recap. It was a good game. Frank covered a lot of the big points. I was pleased with how well they responded in the second half. I was worried about being another Jets game where they would come out like a ball of fire, or a wrecking ball, as the great Miley Cyrus once said, and then just, totally, fade away, as that guy in Empire Records said. But instead, they came out in the second half. They looked disappointed with how the first half ended in that last minute with the 2 touchdowns. And so to see the response there was great. I liked the fact that we will be able to go into the season talking about going to the end of the season talking about Josh Allen with his best performance as a pro. That was something I really wanted to see after that disappointing performance against the Patriots. The defense, played really well. Got, I think, 4 sacks, got a bunch more pressures, forced 3 or 4 turnovers, and, just looked on top of their game, except for, as Frank noted, the special teams gaffes. Dar will be gone, so the punting will be better. Hauschka, we hope it's injury and not the football equivalent of the yips, as they call it in baseball, where all of a sudden you're unable to do your job anymore just for whatever reason. So, that could be something that, you've got to worry about a bit going into the off season. But, overall encouraging performance. And of course, I won't talk about Kyle yet because we can recap that at the end. But boy, what a nice way to go out. And who really cares about the draft position? As I've said on Twitter many times, whether you're picking it 9 or 13 or 5, you're going to get a quality. You have the ability to get a quality player. So assess and do that. But yep, great way to end the season.
Yeah, I mean nothing. I mean, obviously, you, as everyone knows, this is the space where you hear your Josh Allen complaints for the week.
Yep.
So I will go ahead and say, didn't like the touchdown, that he threw for the Dolphins. That wasn't good. That was not a good read. He also missed a couple throws, but he played definitely the best game of his career, and it looked pretty awesome. I mean, there were definitely some great throws and some wise decisions running the ball. Obviously, he did get a little, whacked at the end there with the Kiko Alonso kind of attempted mauling. He actually didn't really do a great job of it. Whether that was intentionally because he was trying to pull up or just because he was trying but failed. I don't think
he's got to go to the Julian Edelman school of dirty hits.
Right. Yeah, exactly. If you're gonna really do it, that guy fined three times for unsportsmanlike last week against the Bills. But no, I mean that obviously like much more than the score. I think if Josh Allen goes out and throws 3 touchdowns and runs for 2 more and throws for more than 200 yards in this game, the Bills could have lost 49-42, and I think we all would have been like, that's fine. Okay, I would have taken the win, but that's a good sign. And obviously the having the win to ice it is great as well. The defense, obviously, not a decent effort. Obviously, the Dolphins pretty much blew up their entire team in the last 2 days with Adam Gase getting fired and some of the seniors moving around on the personnel side. So they clearly have their own problems, and some of that is probably motivation. But at the same time, the Bills did what they had to do. They came out and they made Kyle a winner, which is, I think, what they definitely, the motivation was clearly there from the Bills' perspective. There was no question about that, and I think that's good to see for them. Playing for each other, if for nobody else, is usually a good way to move forward. So.
Speaking of Kyle, he appeared in 183 games as a Buffalo Bill since 2006. He has 1 interception for a total of 2 yards. He has 11 passes defended. He forced 4 fumbles, recovering 6 fumbles for a total of 11 yards. He has 48.5 sacks, 5 of which came this year, 610 combined tackles, 103 of which were for loss, 141 quarterback hits. He also has 1 catch in his career for 9 yards total, and 1 rushing touchdown, which I cannot find on his stats. But here we go. Yep. 1 touchdown, 1 yard, and a touchdown. Yep. So an excellent.
What is that? That's like a Gordie Howe hat trick +1. He's got
it is
a sack, an interception, reception, recovery, and he's got rushing. He's got all he needed an extra point, but we can't have
right. He needed some sort of kicking score, but he didn't get that. He's got a Wikipedia page too, which is nice. He was a 5-time Pro Bowler, 2-time first team All Pro, second team All Pro, first team All SEC. He was a BCS national champion with his College of Louisiana State University. He's a beloved Buffalo Bill, and he is now retired. And it was I didn't think I was going to be as moved as I was. Kyle is one of those guys who not even like Fred, like less so than Fred because he's a defensive player, got lost in the shuffle, who was really an excellent football player that, at least for me, you don't end up thinking about all the time because his job is sort of to not to not be noticed, but like a lot of his job is behind the scenes. Like you can't force a fumble or get an interception or a sack on every play
to help other people make plays to a certain extent.
Right. Exactly. You don't talk about big play defensive tackles for the most part. Even the best, like Pat Williams, one of the best we've had. Name a big Pat Williams play. It's tough to do. I can name like one.
Part of it's the defense that you play too. There are some systems that do, and Kyle has been in systems where he was asked to do more kind of freelance pass rushing and has done well when he's done that. Obviously, he did not put up Aaron Donald 20 sacks in a year's ridiculous numbers, but that's Aaron Donald is kind of on the route to a no doubt Hall of Famer, so that's a little different. But Kyle, I mean, I think he was always. I don't know. He did get injured once or twice, but he was always a tough guy. He was always willing to make it happen, to go out there, even when the team there were a lot of years, almost all of the years, when the Bills were not really in contention at the end of the season. But Kyle would still go out there and he was playing in all of those games and trying, and there was never really any doubt about that in my mind.
Yeah, there was 2 years. 1 year, 2011, he played 5 games. 2015, he played 6 games. Every other year, and then in 2009, he played 14 games. And every other year, he played 15 or 16 games. So 178 out of 183 started.
Durable is the word, I believe they say. I still never forget when we before we even had the podcast, and the year, I think it was maybe 2007 or 2008, and the Bills had named Kyle Williams a starter, a defensive tackle over McCargo, and we're like, oh boy, McCargo must really be terrible. Like, they're putting this Williams guy ahead of him. And granted, McCargo was terrible. We were correct about that, but I think really we didn't sense how good Kyle was until maybe 2010 or so, when he started to get the accolades around the league. And rumor has it he's about to be a 6-time Pro Bowler, because he was a first alternate for the Pro Bowl this year, and one of the Titans defensive tackles went on injured reserve, so he should be able to take over that spot. Really, like you guys have mentioned, he's been under the radar so many seasons. He's been on a lot of bad teams. I think it was so exciting for all of us to see him at the end of last season, crying his tears of joy after the Dalton touchdown pass to lift him into the playoffs. Just remember a lot of big sacks back when it was him and Darius and Mario Williams and Jerry Hughes up front, when they had those 1 or 2 just great seasons together, and just how he's, and all the people in the locker room talk about what a leader he is, and how great his speeches are. And you see Harrison Phillips shedding a tear, and Micah Hyde jumping on his back, and Jerry Hughes gave him just a gigantic hug when he came off the field. And it was great to see that camaraderie, know what he means in the locker room, and is unblessed as we have been as Bills fans, for most of the last 13 years it's been, and really most of our lives. But the years Kyle's been here, it's been a blessing to be able to watch him play and see his effect on the team. And so, hats off to him and best wishes.
Yeah, good luck to him and his wife and his 5 children. And
or as Philip Rivers calls it, a good year.
A starter kit.
Yeah,
starter kit, right. Do you think on a better team he's a Hall of Fame candidate? Do you think
I would talk about that. I think it was with Orlando, and I, not to jump in here, but
yeah, that's what I want.
Yeah, it's possible he might be. Let's put it this way. I think if he were on better teams, his numbers would be better overall, because he was in a lot of situations where at the end of the game, the Bills are down. He's either out of the game because they have no need to play him, or the other team's running the ball all the time. So maybe you get a tackle for a loss, but otherwise you're not going to get too many sexy stats down the road there. The defense was always on the field a lot of years because the offense wasn't very good. So they had to do these rotations, and he wasn't, in the lineup as much as he might have been otherwise. So I think if there were better players around him, his performance would have jumped off the page even more. You could kind of make the same argument, go back to the late 80s, early 90s about Darryl Talley. How great was Talley versus the fact that he had, Bruce Smith playing in front of him, and Shane Conlon and Cornelius Bennett next to him, and Nate Odoms behind him. That helped to make him a good player, to all of a sudden a Pro Bowl year after year type player. So I think Kyle was, I don't know if he ever could have been at Hall of Fame level, but I think an argument can be made for it. Just if I have a gun to my head, I'd say no. I think he was just one of those Hall of Very Good type of guys, and just a great teammate, and enough can't be said for that. But I'd say it's debatable, certainly.
I'd say it's possible if he was on better teams in a major media market. I think that's also, I cannot rule out that has a factor in this kind of stuff. If he's the
New England Patriot defensive tackle Kyle Williams.
Yeah, exactly. Or Super Bowl winning New York Giant Kyle Williams. Like, I could see that kind of changing the calculus for his trajectory, which isn't fair, obviously, to him or to the system, but that is the system that we've devised. And we discussed on Sunday, that doesn't mean anything. That's really just again, I think he's certainly, I'm not sure I would have been okay with that. I would have been annoyed, because I would have been like, well, we've had guys as good as those guys who didn't get in. Just he's there only in because they're in the he's in the he's in a big market and he won more games on a better team or something. So I'd be annoyed about it then. But I think it's definitely not. It's Kyle's is a great player and he's going to go on the Wall of Fame, and I think that's good.
Yeah, I think he's 100% Wall of Fame material. Even if he didn't have quite the career that he did have, I think he's just one of those guys that Buffalo's like, golly, that's our fella there.
Yeah, I think if we were Jaguars fans, we would be talking about Fred Taylor right now. Like, he retired in 2010 with 11,695 yards, which I think is like 15th or 16th all time. Yeah, not even talked about really for the Hall of Fame.
Right.
Again, small market, a lot of teams that weren't very good in there, so that definitely makes it a challenge.
Well, I think we should get to 3 stars because I think that I have a feeling that this will put a bow on the Kyle Williams talk for us.
Maybe it will.
Maybe it will. Maybe, as Kyle Williams said earlier in the week, maybe I will, maybe I won't.
So your 3rd star in this game, no honorable mentions because Miami was terrible, and the last game of the year, everyone needs to get over it. The 3 stars are coming to an end, so everyone's just going to have to, just get used to not having these in your life. But anyway, I would say, actually, why don't I give an honorable mention to Zay Jones? Because 6 catches, 93 yards, and 2 TDs is a nice day at the office. I'm going to say that's probably the first time that Zay's even sniffed a 3-star.
It's I don't remember him being on the 3-star list, but he didn't have garbage time scores either. Like, he had legitimate actual catches and touchdowns that were meaningful.
Yeah, let's do that. Let's give him the honorable mention. I'm going to give the 3rd star to Tremaine Edmonds, who had 12 total tackles and a sack and pass deflection, which was an interception, if I'm not mistaken. Yes, it was. And again, kind of this was, again, he's been getting better. I think we can all agree with that to a certain extent. I think it's been a great year for him in terms of learning his role and being the middle linebacker on a very challenging kind of defense. A lot's asked of that position to a certain extent. So I think it's great that he's performing as well as he is. I don't think he's quite where he needs to be yet, but I think obviously all the tools are there. You can see the speed, you can see the physicality that you want from a middle linebacker. Now he just needs to get the hard part, which is the mental, the recognition, the context, the understanding of what the offense and defense are doing to take it to the level where he's going to be a consistent Pro Bowler. And I think, again, I hope he can do it. I will say your 2nd star is, again, unusual that a man with 5 touchdowns, arguably 6 touchdowns, would get the 2nd star. But at the same time, Josh Allen, maybe somebody else needed to get a 1st star here. Maybe that's all I'll say.
I think this is just more Scott typical hate on
Josh Allen. Yeah, exactly. He throws for 5 touchdowns. You hold him back for the 1 interception that he threw to the defense. They ran in for a score. No, I mean, Allen obviously played a great game. Again, was off on a couple throws here and there. I've seen that. Maybe that's some of the things I've noticed. He kind of heats up a little bit sometimes.
Yes,
where he'll kind of get better as the game goes on. He gets into the flow of things. Has to dial in the range a little bit, dial in the arm. But that's something that you can fix up, coach out a little bit. And regardless, it's 17 of 26, 224, 3 TDs, plus 9 carries for 95 yards and 2 TDs. That's some work. That's a good day at the office for pretty much anybody at the court, any quarterback in the league. And yeah, the Dolphins weren't interested, but there's been plenty of games where Josh Allen's played. The other team hasn't been really interested, and he hasn't performed as well. So you got to give him credit for that. And I think we'll see what happens next year. But yeah, your 1st star goes to Kyle Williams.
Oh, I had Connor McDermott for sure.
Oh yeah, no, absolutely. 1 catch, 9 yards. And I think he had a sack. And my thing is malfunctioning. Otherwise, I would tell you more about what he did.
No, I don't think he had a sack because he finishes it.
Yeah, he didn't have a sack. No, you're right. We were talking about whether they were going to gift him one. Yeah.
But he seemed to be all over the field, and he played a good game. And I think you, like Frank said, you really have, there wasn't really a choice on this one. I think we'd have a lot of unsubscribers had it been anyone besides Kyle.
Yes.
Yeah, absolutely. 1st star, Kyle Williams. 1st star for B. Bills MNY in the time that he's been there. The time that we've been doing this, he's probably the 1st star of B. Bills MNY.
I think that's probably right. I think
2 right. 2 is Fred, probably.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
3 is probably Mormon, right?
Tia, what about Terrell? Just goosing you there, buddy. Just teasing.
Good for podcasting.
Yeah.
Yeah.
The T.O. show. No, let's not ruin this by talking about Terrell. Thank you for another wonderful season of 3 stars. I really appreciate it. It really always puts a nice bow on the previous week and gives us a sense.
No matter
of
how
the
little
game.
prep I do.
Well, just because it comes easy doesn't mean it's not good. So we did not. I will offer. Do you want to talk about the fight other than Kiko Alonso is a disgusting human being?
I did like the fact that, and I mentioned this on Twitter, like that's probably Jordan Mills' last play as a Buffalo Bill, unless they really fail to improve the offensive line this offseason. And like that's the way to go out. It's like I'm going to engage Alonso, who was, and like Bodiger got in there early, so we don't want to overlook like Bodiger, who jumped in as well. I might not even have his name close, but I'm going to call Mike Bodiger. Sure. And, and to see Jordan jump in there, and then Robert Quinn gets involved, and Jordan Mills takes out 2 Dolphin defenders when they were already really thin on defense anyway. That helps you roll up 28 second half points is what that does. So I was glad to see the response from the Bills, as I'm sure former safety and commentator Mark Kelso was, from what I heard.
Very fired up.
Let's see, where are we on the agenda now?
This is the problem when the agenda is like 3 pages
when we
long.
go off the agenda, that's what happens.
Yeah,
right. Yeah, and then Paul added all like the things in that we were gonna maybe talk about, but like 3 stars of the year. To be honest, I'm not sure if I could name that. I mean, I'll take a stab at it if you guys prepared.
Take a stab at it.
Okay.
Yeah. Scott doesn't prepare 3 stars in advance. Why should we?
All right.
That's only fair.
All right. My 3 stars of the year.
And if we want to make it easier, we could just do a round robin. Like you name your third, I name my third, Scott names his third. That way you don't have to come up with all.
Yeah.
Of
Why don't we just do that? Come up. Just get one.
All right,
Frank.
get it started. Okay, fine. Third star. I feel like I have a second and a first star, and now I'm struggling with a third star. It's going to have to be a defensive player, I think. Because I don't think Zay Jones quite got there for me.
Agreed.
So yeah. I think he made a surge, and I think he's my season honorable mention. Him and Shaq Lawson are my season honorable mentions. I think my third star is going to be Kyle. Kyle had a very good season. It was productive, which is, of course, surprising for your 12th year at defensive tackle. I do think that there are 2 players that I'm happier, more excited about.
All right. I will go with my third star, and I'll stay on the defensive side of the ball. And I'm going to give it to the other ancient defender on the Bills defense, 35-year-old Lorax, Lorenzo Alexander. He's not only once he found his role with this defense after he struggled a bit last year, you're thinking, hey, he could be one of those cuts. Like he was just great in that role. And then by the end of the season, when one of the people I'm going to put higher on this list went out, I thought he just did an exceptional job filling in what they need to do at the linebacker position. He's a great leader. They could really use him next year if they can get him to agree to a Kyle contract, and I know they're both talking about that. But I thought his impact on the defense was really solid this year.
Controversial selection for my third star. Nathan, no. Still controversial. I go with Josh Allen.
Ah, okay.
Yeah.
The only reason that our offense ever did anything this entire season, for the most part, was because Josh Allen did it. So, to that extent, he gets the third star.
A huge concession from Scott here at the end of the year.
It's just for you, buddy.
Very good. Well, he's my second star.
Okay.
So just a segue there.
Good transition. We planned it.
Yeah, it's almost like we planned it, but of course, as anybody who listens to this knows, we don't plan anything. We barely remember there are podcasts some weeks. But no, that's exactly why he's my second star, and he was the engine that could. I would once again like to point out he's far from a caricature of a quarterback. I think as far as QBR goes, he was second amongst he was like in the low 20s amongst all quarterbacks, but he was second on the list behind Baker Mayfield on QBR for rookie quarterbacks. And so counts for something. Obviously, there are leaps and bounds that he's got to get better at. There's lots of things we got to do. He's got to do to get better. But I found enough to be encouraged. I found enough to not be, dismissive, which is something that I think you know what? We were doing a podcast and I should go back and listen. I don't think I was feeling quite that way about EJ Manuel. I think I was saying, yeah, I guess he could be good, like still, and he showed something. Like, no, I feel like Josh Allen showed a lot, and a lot more than I thought. I've come about. I haven't come quite 180 on him, but I've come about 178 on him from before we drafted him. So that's why I'm there.
All right. I'll go with my second. I'll stay on the defensive side of the ball. Josh is a great pick, of course. But I'm going to go with Tre'Davious White. We nitpicked a little on him a little bit toward the end of the season when he gave up some passes, but his consistency overall, where he ranks on almost every metric as a cornerback, I was glad even before he got concussed on Sunday, he got a nice interception in where he jumped a pattern. I feel like he was overdue for one. I think his impact on this defense and what they're able to do, knowing they can match him up on the team's best receiver and usually get away with it for the vast, vast majority of the time, is a huge positive. So I'm going to go with Trey White as my number 2.
I would love to do another fancy transition like we did with Paul, but I cannot because Trey was a little higher on my list. But I will say number 2 for me was Double M Matt Milano. I'm gonna try and start that. How do you guys like it? Double M?
Yeah.
M&Ms. But a great season. Obviously cut short with the injury, but I think he's playing about as well as we could expect from a weak side linebacker. I think he's a guy who is one of those guys that we're going to have to count on in years to come. He's one of that core of young veterans. I think he played better than Edmonds. That's nothing to say bad about Edmonds. He just has another year of experience. But he's athletic. He can cover guys down the field. I think he's going to be a good player for us. The production was there this year. He had some interceptions. He had a lot of tackles. So I think, Matt Milano, my second star.
Money Matt Milano. And not quite the transition Scott was hoping for, but I'm going to step on his thunder a little. Trey White was my number 1.
There you go. Okay.
I agree with everything Paul said about him. I feel bad that down the stretch was the time he finally got burned, the last couple of games of the year. But I think what I was reading before was, defenses were basically not throwing to his side of the field, which is always a good sign. He's under contract. Not that this really matters for first star, but I'm really happy that he's under contract for a couple more years before, we have to make a decision on whether to re-sign a cornerback or not. But I think he's earning his money, and he's a good player. He's a really good defensive player, and to me, I think probably the best player, polished top to bottom on the team. So he gets my first star.
All right. So I said Trey White, and then Scott said Matt Milano, and then Frank says Trey White. So I guess I'm going to have to say Matt Milano. Hey, number 1 star. So, and it seems very high for a guy who I wasn't even sure would necessarily be a starter because he lost some playing time to Ramon Humber earlier this season, which is hard to even fathom that happened. But with the level, I know.
I'm going to Google Ramon Humber to make.
He's busy with the Patriots now.
Yeah, I was going to say no longer a Buffalo Bill. I was pretty sure that was the case.
Yep. In fact,
he's going to the playoffs, so don't worry about Ramon. He's fine.
Yeah, Jordan Poyer mentioned that Ramon Humber seemed to know a lot of what they were doing on defense, and that did not help their cause against the Pats. But I think Milano brought an element of 2 things that often don't come in the same player. One, he was a playmaker. He made interceptions way the hell downfield for a linebacker. He forced fumbles, made tackles for losses, did all of those things. But he did them while playing his position, while not trying to do too much, by not getting caught out of his spot. And boy, did we see the impact when he was out toward the end of the season at the Bills, which had a great rushing defense, all of a sudden started to give up more rushing yardage. And I think, his impact, as much as I think Tremaine Edmonds did a great job in his rookie season, or a very good job in his rookie season, he had room to grow as well. I think Milano really help that defense grow over, not just the linebacking core grow, but the defense grow overall too. So I got to give it to Double M, as he is eternally known.
Yes, I think it's pretty clear who my number one is. Trey White. The end.
Mm-hmm. Okay, so good. So I was the only.
So the end I went Milano, white Milano, white Milano, white. So our 1s and 2s were pretty consistent.
Yes, and I had a Josh Allen.
Yep.
Instead of a Milano. So, and I maybe I should have put Matt Milano on my list, but
variety is good.
Yeah, variety is good. Okay. Well, that was fun. The 3 stars of the year. Bills are going to pick 9th this year in the draft. Allegedly, that's what Paul says, but I think that is now well settled.
For right now, it's official, but NFL will change their graphics so many times. Who knows?
Yes,
and also like the Bills could tamper with a free agent or something, and that could cost them some slots or something. Who knows?
A bunch of mock drafts came out already, just in case you were wondering. New York was upstate, NY upstate, or whatever it's called.
Yeah.
They had a roundup of a bunch of what these people are saying the Bills are going to take. Everything from DK Metcalf, wide receiver at Ole Miss, to N'Keal Harry, wide receiver at Arizona State, Jonah Williams. So it's a lot of offensive tackles and wide receivers. I did see one defensive lineman. I don't think the Bills are going to be in a position to draft the other Josh Allen because he had a monster game with Kentucky in his bowl game, and he already was excellent. So, he's probably shooting up the draft board even as we speak. Do we have any preliminary thoughts on what to do with 9? 9 is a good space in that it's not so high that you feel like an ass if you take like a wide receiver, but it's not so low that you're not going to get a quality player. Obviously, higher is better. You could have traded down, but it's. I think it's one of those spots where I'm sorry. Go ahead, Scott. You probably have something better to say than me.
No, I mean, I think the biggest thing that we can think about now is kind of needs and what does this team need? And obviously, I think
Don't let Brandon Bean hear you say this, Scott.
Yes,
exactly. God forbid we draft on need. He will never draft on need as long as he's GM for the Buffalo Bills.
As long as I'm running this ship or whatever he said. Yeah,
exactly. That's great, Brandon. It's a hell of a hill to die on. But is that okay. Anyway, but I think the biggest thing is needs to think about. And then, we do the needs for free agency, first of all, because that comes first. And then you try and fill out what you can. I think you do have to have your draft board in your mind as you're doing that, though. The biggest concern that I have is that the draft is very heavy on defensive talent this year. Nick Bosa, Rashawn Gary, the Clemson guys, Alabama guys. There's always there's a lot of defensive talent. And obviously the Bills, they're not an elite defense. And I've said that. But as we said on the podcast earlier this season, we don't need to get better on defense right now. That is not where we need an infusion of talent. We need to get better on the offensive line and to a certain extent the wide receiver. I think we're a little better now than we thought we were before with Foster and Jones kind of coming on and maybe McKenzie. But I think wide receiver is still a need. And then after that, maybe you can think about, maybe a little more pass rush from the defensive ends, or another replacement for Kyle, depending on Harrison Phillips comes out, or a second corner because Levi Wallace has played well towards the end of the season, but we've had guys who come in and play well for a couple games and then they suddenly they get a big contract and suddenly they're like they don't even belong on the field. So I'm not quite sold yet on our defensive back rotation yet either.
Right at 9, and we can debate Brandon Bean's approach another time, excluding a specialist position, of course. I think the only position where I'd be like, WTF, that if they would draft is a quarterback, of course. I think a close second, not a close second, but a second would be like a running back. I'm like they could use one for the future, sure, but that's really high for that positional value. But really, I mean, you look anywhere else, yes, they're stronger, but Scott mentioned Levi Wallace. Boy, he really emerged well. That doesn't necessarily mean he's going to – we used to have the same conversation about Justin Rogers. Like, look, he's emerged pretty well in that role. And then it's like, oh, wait, no, he's not good. It's just teams didn't know how to pick on him yet because there wasn't enough film.
Right.
Same with Chris Watson back in the day in the early 2000s. So like, we've got a good third corner behind Winfield and Clements, and then the Broncos, his former team, exposed him, and everyone else did, and that was it. So wouldn't mind a corner. Safety, you don't need one. Poyer was declined a little bit this year, though, so why not be ready in case that continues? Hyde and Poyer both under contract. That's high for safety, but I'd take it. Linebacker, Lorenzo at most has 1 year left, so you could use him beside Edmonds and Milano. You can never have enough pass rushers. You're losing a key interior lineman in Kyle. Offensive side of the ball, again, high for a tight end, but man, they could use if there's a Gronkowski available at that point, take him. And say if somebody feels a Gronkowski. So I'm really fine with whatever they would pick, except of course a quarterback and probably a running back. But yeah, I would I hope whoever they have highest on their board when it comes around to number 9 is an offensive lineman or wide receiver. That would make me very happy.
Okay, that's fair. I think that there's something to be said though in not so much Bean's defense, but like you can't expect one 21-year-old to turn your team around either, which I think is why you stack and try and take the best talent that you can. I think a lot of this is going to have to be addressed in free agency. The case being made for wide receivers is in the draft anyway, is like, I'm looking at the list of 2019 free agents right now, and it looks like Randall Cobb, Dante Moncrief, and a bunch of other people. And there's not a lot of depth at wide receiver. There's a lot of older offensive linemen, like all these guys that I believe at the beginning of our podcast, 100 some odd episodes, is like, oh, Ryan Khalil, we should draft him. Mike Iupati, we should draft him. the list of people that I'm like, yeah, I remember saying I want to take him. I want to take him. They're all in their early to mid 30s now. So the free agency pool is going to be tight, and you're going to have to fight to get players. You're going to have to pay to get players. But between this year and some more money coming off the books the following year, Chris Hogan, free agent, 30, made 4 million, market value, AAV was 4 million. Seantrell Henderson, 4 million, right tackle, 27, free agent. All these strange ex-Bills names.
Yeah, it's a rough. Yeah, we were talking, and now we're kind of venturing into other territory. I think it's fine. At the bar, like trades, not a bad idea. Guys, the league year starts March 13th, which I actually looked up in advance before this pod. There are some teams that are in. There are 4 or 5 teams. There aren't many, but there are enough that are in some salary cap trouble, and they might be tempted by, hey, we've got a mid-round pick, or if someone exceptional is out there, a second-round pick, for that receiver, for that lineman who's under, a decent, who might be a high but not exorbitant contract you can get that player for. So that can be one way to explore it too, because, free agency tends to work on a supplemental basis, but you rarely get those Lorenzo Alexander types who are going to be, or Poyer and Hyde in free agency. That said, Bean got Poyer and Hyde in free agency, so maybe he is going to be able to find those guys at a reasonable price. But I think exploring trades with some of the teams in cap trouble is not a bad plan.
I fully agree, and the league has shifted more to a trading league than it has been in my lifetime. They certainly seem much more open to trading players and getting rid of cap space and stuff like that. So there absolutely might be room for something like that. As a quick aside, would you care to guess any of the 5 oldest people listed as free agents on Spotrac.com?
I mean, is Lorenzo on there?
No, not in the top 5.
All right, Adam Vinatieri?
No.
I was gonna say kickers is what I'm.
There are no kickers on this list.
Janikowski's under contract.
There are 3 quarterbacks and 2 tight ends in the top 5 oldest.
All right, Josh McCown.
Yep, he's oldest at 40.
Antonio Gates.
39.
Well done.
Thank you. I'm done. That's all I got.
Atlanta quarterback not named Matt
Schaub?
Matt Schaub at 38. Former New England tight end.
Aaron Hernandez. Oh, never mind.
I was going to say, bad taste.
Benjamin Watson.
Big Ben Watson. And the last one, another journeyman quarterback, most recently with Detroit, is 37.
Recently, Orlovsky?
No,
Nope.
he's doing college games. He
Oh,
called
is he?
he called the
Yeah.
back on Thursday.
Most famously a New England Patriot quarterback, not named Tom Brady.
Matt Castle?
Matt Castle,
Wow.
37.
I did not know he was on a roster.
Then you have Ryan Fitzpatrick and Darren Sproles at 36.
And
And
Sproles is
then,
retiring, so.
right. Then you got Larry Fitzgerald, Mercedes Lewis, Frank Gore, and Jermon Bushrod, and Brandon Whedon all at 35. And we'll stop there.
I would take Sproles. I take Sproles and Fitzgerald right now. I don't know about you guys.
Yeah.
I don't think they're coming to Buffalo, but
I mean, Larry Fitzgerald at $11 million last year.
I mean, he caught some passes this year.
He caught a non-zero number of passes. That's absolutely fair. Okay, let's move on. I felt
so did Ryan Tannehill.
Right. That's exactly.
Touchdown reception on Sunday.
Likely available as well.
The Bills will be home against the AFC East schedule, the Jets, the Dolphins, and the Patriots, of course. They'll also host the Bengals, the Ravens, the Broncos, Eagles, and Washington, as Paul put it in the agenda, whether purposely or not. To avoid
that was purposeful. In fact, when I copied that off a website, they listed all the team names: Cincinnati Bengals, Baltimore Ravens, Denver Broncos, Philadelphia Eagles, and then that last team it just said Washington. I'm like,
okay, well there you go. I wasn't sure if people were still doing that, but there you go. They'll be also away against the AFC East and then going to Cleveland, to Pittsburgh, to Tennessee, to Dallas, and the New York Giants as well. The Washington's in disarray. The Broncos are a team middling like the Bills.
Yep.
The Eagles had a
coach.
Yeah. The Eagles, they won the NFC East, right? But they did not.
They sneaked into a wild card.
Wild card, right? That was right. It was who won? Was it Dallas?
Cowboys. Yeah.
All right, sure. Okay. But what else? The Steelers. The Steelers could be a completely different team next year. I have no clue how to read the Steelers because apparently now Antonio Brown's not returning Ben Roethlisberger's text. That's the last thing I read. The Titans. Are the Titans, the Giants, even, the Giants could be a second-year running back and a rookie quarterback next year for all I know. And the Cowboys have been up and down depending on whether Ezekiel Elliott, is.
And of course, we skipped over a team that actually we would just count as victory in previous years, which is the Browns, but we can no longer do that.
Game the Browns next year. That's going to be no joke, yeah.
People are saying that could be a Monday night game.
I'm kind of excited for that game. I mean, the last time the Bills and Browns were on Monday night, it was terrible. But
yeah, that was Edwards and Quinn.
Trent Edwards, I think, was 3 for 6 with 3 interceptions to start the game.
Yeah.
Depending on when that game happens, that could be for a wild card. I mean, because the Ravens, they're clearly on the right track with Jackson, or at least they are so far, and it's going to be tough to. I mean, Patriots look vulnerable, but at the same time, I don't think I would count on the Bills winning that next year. So Browns could be one of the teams we have to beat if we want a wild card next year.
Absolutely. Absolutely. That's going to be a big game, and you get to see Baker Mayfield. And yeah, I want to hold off on the Ravens because I really liked what Lamar Jackson did, but I think he's still in the initial handful of games phase where,
I would say
can he adjust or not?
I'd say that about any of the first round QBs, even Mayfield, who I think was a step above most. I think it's still too early to judge. Like even watching Jackson, I watched most of that game on Sunday, and he impressed me in a lot of ways, but man, he's careless with that football, and that can be something that can hurt a career. I look at his teammate, Robert Griffin III. We were ready to anoint him after a great rookie season, and to his credit, he stuck around in the National Football League. He's a third stringer behind Jackson and Flacco, but don't want to jump on that yet. That said, he could be the next Peyton Manning, and I wouldn't be shocked either. You never know with these guys.
And not to mention, half of these teams could have new coaches because they don't have coaches at all right now.
Yeah.
Hashtag I evacuate the Bulls and pass the Gaze.
Pass the Gaze, yes.
Yeah, was the other one. Lots of poop humor here. Derek Anderson re-signed. He is going to be hopefully he's out of concussion protocol now. But they re-signed him. Good quarterback room continuity. No room for Nate Peterman. I haven't heard anything about Matt Barkley, right? He's still on.
He was re-signed to, that was last week. They re-signed him to a 2-year deal.
Well, there you go. So that's it. The quarterbacks are set. The Bills.
I know. I looked up the last time the Bills carried over from the end of one season to the next, the same 3 quarterbacks, and it was 7 years ago, and it was Fitzpatrick, Tyler Thigpen, and Brad Smith. So I feel better about this room. History may prove me wrong, but I like this room.
I was waiting for someone to drop the room, the QB room kind of concept, which is very prevalent, amongst the coaches. We like that room. I was waiting for that. So
what did McDermott say in his thing? Like, I want a veteran in each room or something, and it's
I want a leader. I want a leader in each room.
Maybe more than one.
You've got someone like Anderson who's won in the league and been around for the while, but who actually can't play quarterback really anymore. But then you have a guy like Barkley who's a younger veteran, but he's had some success. He's had some failure, and he knows some stuff. And then
an actual backup,
yeah, it's an actual backup.
Let's talk about this next section that Paul's laid out. I'm going to read it off, the key free agents and the cost-saving cuts, and talk about it in the context of the McDermott and Bean end-of-the-year press conferences even. I think it's a good time to discuss those as well, because I think that's what a lot of these were about. Yeah. Obviously, Lorenzo Alexander, Groy Miller, Jordan Phillips, Logan Thomas, and Eddie Yarborough, all key free agents. Reed Ferguson is one of these ERFAs, which is a new term to me. Exclusive rights.
Free agents.
It's like less than 2 years of league time, but they can't negotiate with anyone else. It's almost like a baseball contract to me. But
it's like arbitration 2, we would essentially call it. Right. Arbitration 1 before you're a restricted free agent, and then
right. And then as far as cost saving cuts, Charles Clay is basically I don't want to say a dead man walking. That's not fair, but he's not going to be on the team almost certainly next year. LaShawn McCoy in the press conference once again got a huge vote of confidence from Brandon Beane, and I would expect him to be on the team and in training camp. And Trent Murphy, I don't know. Do you need him? No. Did he do something good? Yeah. Do you want to get better anyway?
Is he worth that much? No.
Yep.
Is there somebody better we're going to find? I'm not sure.
Right.
Yeah, those are the questions that are going to determine whether Murphy's on the team. I think he's a $8.575 million cap hit, which is 6th on the team right now behind Starr, Jerry, LaShawn, Charles. Oh, 5th on the team behind those 4. And if you cut him, it's only 3.5 dead money, and you save over $5 million. So if they like what Shaq brings, if they get more depth on the edge in free agency or the draft, I mean, I think that those are going to. And how does he do? How does he perform? That could all determine it. Which, by the way, I just went to overthecap.com now to make sure I had my numbers right. And for the first time ever, I look in the right column, and the dead money for the Bills says $3 million when it said like $50 to $70 million now forever. So now just McCarron, Holmes, Adolphus Washington, and Nathan Peterman are on the books as dead money for 2019. It's beautiful to see.
And I think that's actually getting back to LaShawn McCoy for a second. I think that was part of Bean's comments was like, well, if we were in a lot of cap trouble, maybe we're having, he didn't quite say this, but I think he said he's dynamic and he had a bad year and the line was bad. And he basically made it sound like we can afford it. It's, the dead cap is 2.6. So you'd save, and if his base salary is 6 and his cap it is 9, I don't know exactly how to do the math on this, but I would guess that you'd maybe save $3 or $4 million if you cut it.
Yeah, it looks like they save. Actually, they save $6.4 million if they cut LaShawn, because his dead money will be 2.625 based on how his salary was structured.
Okay, so
it's very cuttable.
Okay, so yeah, so that's a decent player. And I think that at least the way Bean's talking now is like, well, we would rather bet that $6 million on LaShawn McCoy looking better behind a better offensive line, which we plan on getting. And of course, he's almost certainly considered a leader and all that stuff for the running back room and whatnot.
And the other part of it briefly is
please,
we have to spend the free agent money on people who will come here. So it's kind of like, LaShawn's already here. He's clearly willing to play here and to a certain extent happy. Obviously, we'll see what happens with this off-field trouble as well. But that values for something too. If we're going to have to spend that, if we save $6 million, that implies we're going to be able to spend $6 million getting that much better, at the running back position, which I'm not really sure we can. A draft pick, yes, but I'm not sure there's a free agent running back who's going to have a lot more value than, hopefully a more motivated and behind a better line, LaShawn McCoy.
Yes.
I should have put Ivory on this list too, by the way, and Russell Bodine, I realized, because Ivory is a $3 million salary. You save 700. You only have $750K in dead money if you cut him, and then Bodine about the same, 2.8 million, and you only have 500K in dead money if you cut him.
Well, we're gonna have many moons to go through the dollars and cents of Bill's transactions.
Right. I will say the only ones I care about, I'd like them to re-sign Lorax and then Reed Ferguson. I think you retain simply because I haven't noticed him, and that's what you want out of a long snapper. The rest, Jordan Phillips would be nice, but not that big a deal. Logan Thomas, okay. Riabro underperformed. If any of those offensive linemen come back, to me, it would have to be his depth. And as far as the cost-saving moves go, we'll talk about all the McCoy situation in the offseason, I'm sure.
Yeah, and I think, again, I think you cut McCoy or something, like if you need the $4 million for something else. But if you like Scott said, he's a guy who wants to be here, and if you're gonna be, if you're not struggling to spend your money, but if you're not particularly looking for an extra $4 million to spend, then maybe you just keep him, because you're gonna actually lose more cap money the next year or two. Obviously, you'll spend some of it, but some of that more dead cut money goes away in 2020 as well. So,
yep.
But we'll talk about that down the road. We have no game to preview this week, so we have some more topics. How the Bills should spend their money. We've talked that, positions of need.
I kind of like the stats compared to other AFC East teams, Todd.
Yeah.
Because that's, because what's interesting is we were all kind of impressed with Sam Darnold, but guess what? You've got a new head coach to deal with now. And the Dolphins, until the last game when their defense was fairly decimated by injury and ejection and so forth, they looked like at least a decent defense and a passable offense. But now you fired your head coach and are admitting starting over, and they're probably changing QB. So,
yeah.
And then you look at New England, where are they? Tom Brady for the first time ever had a consistent stretch of not looking like Tom Brady, not just he had a bad game or two. It was he kind of looked average up until the Jets game for about 5 weeks in a row. So, I really think the Bills, and you guys, of course, can disagree with me on this, but I feel like they're really well positioned right now with a good draft and with decent free agency to set themselves up in the long term. I looked, and except for the Jets run in the early 2010s, no team besides New England has finished in second place or higher multiple years in a row since the Colts did it in the 90s. But they're not even in the division anymore.
Right.
So it's just the Jets, Dolphins, and Bills just keep rotating second, third, and fourth. They can't even no one can even finish in second consecutive years except for that one brief Jets stretch where they did it in the Sanchez years. Sanchez years. Yeah, that gives you an idea of the mediocrity of the Bills and Dolphins at the time.
This is a fun off-season game we need to do at some point. Is we need to pick the all-star team of this year's Jets, Bills, and Dolphins, and see if that team could beat the Pats. I feel like
that's a great idea.
I feel like this year they could, but
maybe years in past, maybe not. But this year there's more of a chance. But who's playing quarterback?
What? That's a good question. It might be Josh Allen.
Yeah. The discussion is literally going to be between Allen and Darnold, right? I mean, there's no one else in that. I mean,
maybe calling him Darnold?
Darnold? What do we
Darnold?
Yeah, I've been calling him Darnold, like Arnold.
Yeah, like Arnold with a D. But I like Darnold because he's old. He's an old man.
Darnold, right? I mean, that's
Okay. Anyway, but that's again for the offseason. I agree. I mean, I think the Pats are as weak as they've ever been, but we're going to have to take it from them. Brady clearly wants to play till he's 45, and that's still not a couple years away. And, short of him getting injured or something, he's still going to have enough talent, and they're going to reload. And they had some guys dinged up this year, and, it's going to be tough. I think, we've got a good shot at the Jets and the Dolphins, but that's not saying a whole hell of a lot. So
I'm looking at I pulled up the standings just because I wanted to see the points for and against, and the Bills have
they were all terrible. I think the Jets were actually better than the Bills and Dolphins, even though they're below them in the standings.
The Jets had the most points for, except for the Patriots, and the Bills had the best points against, except for the Patriots. The Patriots won both those categories. The thing that I found interesting was the Dolphins were 1-7 on the road, which is only one game worse than the 2-6 the Bills and Jets did, which is only one game worse than the Patriots 3-5 on the road this year. So finishing 11-5 and getting the they're going to have to play on the road at some point if they're going to progress. And so we'll see how that does for the Patriots this year. Yeah, the interesting thing is, like, the Dolphins are 7-9. They are going to be picking later in the middle rounds, and they do want to have a quarterback answer.
Yep.
Because they're moving on from Ryan Tannehill, and I'm pretty sure they don't want Blake Bortles as the other guy who's moving on from the quarterback.
Right. And Scott can correct us if we're wrong, but I have a feeling this draft class is much more 2013 QB draft class than 2017 QB draft class.
Yeah, I mean, you never really know either, because I remember the Mahomes-Trubisky year, guys were like, oh, there's not much there this year. And
Watson was in that class too.
Yeah, and Watson. Yeah, it's a good point. So it's not a perfect science. I was watching the kid from Oregon, Herbert or Herbert. I'm not sure exactly how to pronounce his name. It's spelled like Herbert. He looked pretty solid in their bowl game, but then at the end, they also only scored like 7 points. So I'm not really going to take anybody to the bank yet. And again, like, everyone thought Allen was going to be terrible this year, and he was not terrible, as Frank has pointed out on numerous occasions.
I don't think anyone would have guessed Rosen to be the most terrible, but he was. But then again, look around.
And he's also in Arizona, and they fired that coach. So, oh, we also fired a coach. I guess that was up in.
That's right. In fact, it's like Baltimore and Buffalo are the only teams with new first-round quarterbacks that did not fire their coach at some point during or after that quarterback's first season.
Juan Castillo fired. Yep. Could Danny Crossman be next? Stay tuned.
Yep.
I mean, Castillo getting fired is fine by me. Like, I understand that the offensive line was terrible, but they never looked any better. They never looked like they got anything.
Yeah,
going.
that Dolphins game on Sunday was atrocious. Like, literally, like, the run game, like, there were guys flying into the backfield before the ball was snapped, looked like. Mm-hmm. And the Allen was consistently kind of running for his life. There were a couple plays where things held up, but for the most part, it was just, a variety of revolving doors.
And if by the end of the year they were bad but looked like they could do a little something, you'd go, well, good. Okay, it looks like he got him somewhere, and maybe if he had better talent, he'd pull it together. But
he was never really built to be an offensive line coach. He was like a defensive coordinator in Philly.
He was for Philly,
a line coach for some reason. And
although they mentioned before he was that in Philly, he was no line coach somewhere else. So he just keeps bouncing from one side. He was tight ends coach in Philly, and then in the 90s, and then he was an offensive line coach, and then he was a defensive coordinator, and then he was a run game coordinator, and then he went back to an offensive line coach. So he is a jack of all trades, and maybe he does none of them particularly well, but he's a likable guy, and that's why he's getting jobs.
Because he knows guys. He knows Sean McDermott. That's where he got that.
Knowing dudes left and right.
In fact, he replaced McDermott as defensive coordinator in Philly, I noticed. So, yeah.
We would like to thank our Facebook and Twitter friends.
We did get a last-second Twitter question, by the way.
I don't do last-second Twitter questions. I'm sorry. Who's it from?
It's interesting. It's David, and he's saying, hey, can you compare EJ's rookie, David Firster? Can you compare EJ's rookie season with Josh Allen's? And we won't go through line by line, but you mentioned stats and records. I will say their stats are amazingly similar. Josh's record was 5-5, technically 5-6, but I'm not giving him the Texans loss because he was, dead by the time that game ended before he was resurrected. EJ was 4-6, so very similar. Josh is slightly higher interception percentage, but what strikes me, it's the one stat I want to point out, because when you go line by line through them, you'll be like, wow, these are really similar rookie stats. QBR, and I hate to give credit to ESPN on this, because I think, as Frank had noted earlier, like, we all feel that Josh is at least better than EJ. We're ready to make that claim. They look similar in every regard, but you look at QBR, EJ's was 39.5. Josh's was 52.3. So not great by any sense, but 13 points higher than EJ. And a lot of that is his running and so forth. He got sacked the exact same number of times as EJ. So
is it fewer games? Sorry, did you say how many games they each played?
Yeah, I didn't. Josh played 12, started 11, and finished 10 of those. And EJ started 10 of 10. So they both started 10 games.
Okay.
Josh started 11. So about the same like EJ stats 180 of 306 for 58.8 completion percentage, and Josh was 169 for 320 for 52.8. Yardage was about, even, like within 102 yards of each other. Josh was better. So, very, very similar passing lines. Obviously, the rushing stats greatly favor Allen with his 89 for 631 and 8 touchdowns, whereas EJ had a mere 53 for 186. So, but is Josh the hard snapper? That's the question. Can he do the hard snap that EJ could do?
We haven't seen it yet. I have to coach him up on that.
Nor is he throwing it in a medical tent at any point.
That's right. I forgot EJ did that.
Your page basics are complete. I thought we had a comment on Facebook.
We did. We had a Facebook comment from Brian
Pizzle. But I can't load it. So Brian's just going to have to, unless Scott has it.
I have it, yes. Apart from the odd individual surprise, Milano, Foster, Ivory being good, Shady being bad, and Peterman still being on the roster, WTF, the biggest change is the defense being a fairly good unit. They were a fairly good unit last year. To a certain extent, that's how they got into the playoffs last year.
Right, although they were terrible on run defense last year. Whereas this year they were pretty.
They were. And I think defense is tough to repeat, is what a lot of people say.
And just to be clear, in terms of run defense, I'm looking at NFL.com, and they are ranking run defense as 16th for the Bills in the league. So actually pretty much dead average in terms of average yards a game at 114.9.
All right.
So the
run defense last year they were close to 30 something, weren't they?
I don't remember.
I'll check.
Yeah, but someone else can check that while I'm reading the rest of Brian's comment, which is, as a QB, Allen as much as a mystery as much as we've drafted him, though he's a much better athlete than I thought. I think we've eliminated. I don't want to say we've eliminated the worst case scenario for Allen, which is like he's a bust who can't ever play in the league, but we're close to. We basically eliminated that. I'd say there's a very small chance of that happening. I think that was a much higher chance at the beginning of the season, though. That now again. That doesn't mean that he's going to be a good quarterback, because there's a very large middle class of quarterbacks who are going to draw paychecks in the league for the next 10 years, but do not have any reason to start a quarterback.
We mentioned Robert Griffin III earlier. This is his 7th year in the league, 8th year in the league or so, and he was rookie of the year, better rookie year than Allen had, and he's stuck around in the league, which is great, but he's not the franchise guy that the Bills need Allen to be.
Oh, to be a middle class quarterback team again, though. Yeah. I don't know.
Yeah. And Brian goes on to say, position-wise, linebacker has been partially aggressive, but we now need a new running back, as well as all the same weaknesses we had before. That I, to a certain extent, agree with. I think we feel a little more confident about our wide receiver spot this year, just because Benjamin, we had Benjamin at the beginning of the year, and we thought that maybe he'd be able to give us something. Though at the end, at the most, it would have been a 1 year, and then we would have had to. Now, obviously, Foster and Zay Jones obviously under contract, Foster not. I think we have him for 1 more year, and then presumably we want to renegotiate soon with him, depending on how he looks in the offseason. But so to a certain extent, certainly the offensive line is pretty much worse, if not, it's definitely worse than where we were last year, and has not gotten better this season. So,
right.
The Bills, by the way, last year I did check their rush defense stats. They were a whopping 26th, 29th in yards allowed, and 32nd in terms of touchdowns allowed. So definitely improved from last year anyway.
Yeah, up 10
spots. Of course, the offensive rushing stats totally inverted, where they were like 6th in the league in rushing last year, and I think they were like 34th this year. I think they were lower than their teams. Their rushing was so bad.
Well, we got to get moving here. Because we're
about to hit the hour mark in like 2 minutes. So
I know, and we have not done this day in Bills headlines nor our quick playoff preview. So I want to get to the gift that keeps giving, which is this day in Bills headlines. What you got for us, Paul?
All right, we'll start with it's January 1st. Happy New Year, everyone!
Happy New Year.
So we're going to go all the way back to the year 2018.
Maybe this year.
Yes, maybe this year. I don't know if you guys remember 2018, but that'll be our first one. So we'll go through 2018. What I will do quickly, this was the day after the drought ended. So I'm going to fire off some quotes, and you can let me know if you know which Bill said them. So here we go. Defensive back said, Andy Dalton, you heard it here first. I love you, man. I love you. So it's Bill's defensive back. It is a starter, so you got a choice of 4.
E.J. Gaines.
That was one of the four, but not the one.
Trey White.
That was two of the four. So you're going back. You've left the
Jordan
coin.
Poyer. Micah Hyde.
There we go. You only needed the fourth guess.
Okay.
Micah Hyde was the one who said that.
I'm going to run upstairs. I will be right back.
All right.
Ooh. All right. Well, this will get bad quick then.
All right. No, I think you can get these, Frank.
Okay, I think I can do it. Let's do it.
All right. Bill's defensive lineman, when asked what the reaction was as soon as the Ravens game ended. Oh, it was very quiet and somber. It was very low key. Like, no, everybody went crazy. The boys loved it. It's just a great feeling.
That sounds like Kyle.
It is Kyle Williams. So, all right. I think Scott's been holding you down.
Yeah, I think.
All right. All right. Which front office member said, it's very similar to having the anvil that we had for my whole 20-year career about the team staying in Buffalo. That anvil, I always said, we threw it in the Lake Erie when Terry and Kim bought the team. Now we've got another anvil we can throw in Lake Erie.
Oh, okay. So this might be Russ Brandon, who was not yet fired.
Scott was holding you back. Russ Brandon is the correct answer.
Yes. I was like, front office, who's been there that long? And I'm like, oh, yeah, that one almost tripped me up. Okay, go ahead.
It was also funny in a quick quote from Terry Pagula. He's like, all you had to do was see Russ Brandon. We were in coach's office after the game, and Russ lost it. I felt so good for him. I'm like, oh, boy, these quotes didn't age well by 4 months. All right, 2017, back to some headline-specific questions. Blank has one game shot to prove he can coach Bills.
One game shot to prove that he can coach.
So he was an interim coach for one game.
Was it Anthony Lynn?
Anthony Lynn.
Yes.
Hell, man, this is embarrassing. It's ridiculous.
He won't. He'll have to listen back to this because he won't believe that I got 3 for 3.
All right, 2016. AP source: Bills planning to cut blank in offseason. It says he is by far the Bills' highest paid player, and he's been critical of first-year Bills head coach Rex Ryan.
Ooh, okay, this one I'm not going to get. Let's see. So this is in 2016.
Yep.
Rex Ryan is the new coach.
Yep.
And it's an
By
expensive.
far the Bills' highest paid player. It says he has 2 years left on the 6-year, $100 million contract he signed in free agency in 2012.
Oh, this is Mario.
Very good.
Yes.
Mario Williams. Okay, so a little more hints there, but still none wrong.
Yep.
This will be slightly tougher, but we'll see if you can get it.
Okay.
2015. There's a bunch of headlines, by the way, that say Doug Marrone steps down as Bills coach. We're going to disregard those.
Okay.
Instead, we'll go with the headline, blank emerges as strong candidate to be Bills' next coach. The hint here is he did not become the Bills' next coach. The other hint is he is, in fact, coaching in the playoffs.
Anthony Lynn.
Oh, Scott jumps in. Anthony Lynn was an answer for 2017.
Oh,
Yeah. While you were gone, I went 4 for 4.
yeah, I heard that. Yeah.
So yeah, Anthony Lynn. So it was, but I think it was the obviously an assistant coach there.
What was he doing? Was he with the Eagles at this point? Maybe I don't know where he was coaching. He was not a head coach.
It's Frank Reich.
Yep, there you go.
Yes.
Oh, wow. Frank on the roll.
Man. All right. I don't even know what I can ever throw Frank off on anymore. 2013, I just want to mention this. The Bills fired Chan Gailey on this day. No quiz question, though. 2012, we have a game. The Bills went up on the Patriots 21-0 before giving up 49 straight points to the Ravens. It was 49-21. That was not even an exaggeration. That was what happened. I remember watching when I left the bar in New York City after New Year's Eve, they were winning like 21-20 still at that point. And then by the time I got to Penn Station, they were down like 40.
I am certain I went to the movies this day because I remember seeing that score.
Well, the nice thing is this is a why question.
Okay, good. Because they're bad.
Stevie Johnson caught a touchdown pass to put the Bills up 14-0. And Chan Gailey benched him the rest of the game after he scored that TD pass. Why did Chan Gailey bench Stevie?
I know why.
Well, you should continue again because you got the streak, and I will.
Okay. Well, I don't know why, but I'm pretty sure he got another unsportsmanlike conduct
penalty. Yep.
And it was the Was this why so serious, or was this?
No, but it is lifting his jersey. So you've gotten 2 elements: unsportsmanlike conduct penalty, lifting his jersey.
I don't remember what it said this time.
I thought it was why so serious, so I didn't have it.
This was Happy New Year.
Oh, Happy New Year! I mean, come on,
Sammy, always a trickster. Or
Stevie.
Stevie. Sorry.
I love Stevie. Like, really, like, was that so terrible that he lifted his shirt and it said Happy New Year?
Yeah,
and I know
the
Chan
officials
was.
thought so, and Chan had said publicly, like, if he took another one of those unsportsmanlike conduct penalties after a touchdown, he was going to have to bench him the rest of the game. So Chan had to stick to his word.
He didn't have to. He got fired.
That's true.
The fuck did it matter? Look at it. What the fuck did it ever matter that he benched Stevie Johnson? Nothing. Stevie Johnson learned no lessons. Chan Gailey got fired, and all that happened was I was denied the joy that was Stevie Johnson for half a game.
Yeah.
Anyway,
well you
wouldn't have watched anyway. Yeah.
That I wasn't watching anyway.
All right, 2010. This is a mention only, but the Bills named Buddy Nix GM. Oh boy. All right, so 2007. Bills linebacker blank, teary-eyed, discussing tough season and future with team. Says, I've always put the team first, but I told him in this situation right here, this is one time I have to be selfish with this decision and do what is best for myself and my family.
That's Takeo Spikes.
Good guess, but it's the other
one. London Fletcher Baker.
London Fletcher Baker.
The other one.
Yep.
Damn it.
All right, 2006. We have a game.
I'm cooling off. All right.
Yep. The Jets beat the Bills 30-26. Despite the Bills going 8 for 14 on third down and rushing for 159 yards on 30 carries, Kelly Holcomb threw 4 interceptions and they fumbled 3 times. That's how you lose to a 4-12 Jets team. But the question for this game, which I watched at the bar by myself, not only were you guys not there, no one was in the bar except me and Bjorn until like the third quarter, and then like 3 Jets fans showed up. What defensive tackle played his last game as a Bill before playing 8 more seasons, notably with Baltimore, but also with Denver, Detroit, and St. Louis? He played well in this game. He had a tackle for a loss and a good number of tackles for his position.
What year was it?
2006 defensive tackles. Interior lineman, not of the Pat Williams, Ted Washington, Sam Adams level of play, but a good enough guy to play in the league for 12 seasons.
Sam Adams.
I'm
not even trying.
This one's going to bother me because I feel like I wouldn't know who this is.
I feel like with Scott, I've got to give him
Dominican Sue.
So let me see if I can. I will look up his college quickly and determine that he went to Colorado. He was a Colorado Buffalo draft class 2000.
Oh shit. now I'm right on it. Oh, it's not. And it's interior line, right? So it's
interior line. Yep. Bills 0205. Justin Bannon. He gets it.
There you go.
Well, you guys are having a banner day. This is great.
Bannon Day.
A Bannon Day. That's the name of this segment now. A Bannon Day. All right.
Not a Steve Bannon Day.
This Bannon and this day in Bannon history.
That's actually going to the future.
I don't like where this is going.
All questions will relate to Justin Bannon.
Okay.
And finally, 2003. I will try not to give hints on this because it'll give it away, but I'll just give the headline. Blank makes ESPN All-Rookie Team.
What year is this?
2003. I will give the one hint that, oh my God, this looks so bad in hindsight, that he made any All-Rookie Team. Not for any personal reasons. He didn't murder anyone, but really not a good football player.
More hints.
All right. This hint will bring it over the top. I'll read the clues slowly, and then you can jump in at any time, because the second I say something, I think you're going to get it.
Justin Bannon.
Yes. No. Minnesota's Bryant McKinney joins fellow top 10 pick.
Oh, Mike Williams.
Mike Williams, yep.
There you go.
Mike Williams, he didn't have a terrible first season. He was okay.
He was okay enough to make the all-rookie team. So Yep, that was this day in Bills history, January 1, the beginning of the year.
If
And Bills headlines, whatever the hell the segment's called.
if he was on a pirate ship shooting shells, he'd be Justin Cannon.
Oh,
Yes.
he's going down the Frank Road.
Wow, man, that is a game we haven't played in a long time.
If he hosted a show with Skip Bayless, he'd be Justin Shannon.
Oh. Oh, if he was basically spoiled milk, he might be Justin Dannon. Oh, you know what? If he was the villain in a Zelda game, he'd be Justin Gannon, and we'll leave it there.
If he was a Bible verse, it would be. Hold on. I gotta give a straight face. If he was a Bible verse, he would be one cannot serve both God and Justin Manning.
All right, stop the pod. We did it. We can go home.
Oh, I'm so glad that our listeners weren't around here for the Jake Plummer years.
Those people joined us on hour 2 of this podcast. It finally paid off.
Oh, the season's over, everybody. Yeah. This is it. It's all coming loose. Look, all right, we're not going to do a preview of.
Yeah,
I thank you, Paul, for putting together a quick list of the thing. If you want to mention,
here we go: Chargers, Colts, and then I'll say Seattle and Chicago. Those are my picks.
Scott,
Chargers. Which is weird because Baltimore beat them like 3 weeks ago, but I still like the Chargers.
Yeah.
Chargers.
Houston,
Indianapolis. No, it's got to be Indianapolis. And then Seattle and Chicago.
All right, same as me.
All right, I'm gonna say Bills by 10. So thank you so much for listening, everybody. We really appreciate it. It was a kind of a cool year with Josh Allen and other stuff, and it got dead at sometimes, and it was good, but it's certainly not the worst year we've had on this podcast. We really hope that you enjoyed the journey with us. It's 2019. We are going to soon, usually by the Super Bowl, we start to slow down our podcasts because news sort of slows down. But we'll be there for all the breaking news. We'll be there to discuss things. We will have wacky schedule. We'll have this day in Bills headlines. I'm going to try and come up with something to be my thing, but we'll see. It's probably
we'll workshop it in the off season.
Yeah, well, I'll just I'll maybe we can bootleg a comedy tape or something, and I'll tell some off-color jokes, and we'll see if that works. But we really appreciate your listening. If it wasn't for you, we'd still do this podcast, but we'd have less people listening. So thank you so much. We look forward to talking to you online on the Twitter at @BBillsMNY or on Facebook /BBillsMNY or bbillsmny@gmail.com, or, just Google up or iTunes up.
Smoke signals, carrier pigeons,
all the things. Yeah, right. Just telepathy would work too. Until then, have a safe and happy and prosperous new year. We will talk to you soon. My name is Frank.
I'm Scott.
I'm Justin Bannon.
Good night.